Imagine you're 3 weeks into your dream home purchase, inspections are done, the appraisal has already come in, you're ready to close. And then your insurance quote shows up, and it's not $1,800 a year like you had budgeted. Try $7,400 or worse, no quote at all. And in Charleston in 2026, this is happening every single week. So today we're sitting down with the guy that our team calls when this lands on a client's desk. Welcome back to Ask Charleston. I'm Brett Kelley. Real people, real places, real ideas, real Charleston. Today, our guest is BJ Guido. And BJ Guido, he's the managing partner at Coastal Living Consultants and one of the most trusted insurance brokers in the Tri-County. BJ has been guiding our buyers through the Lowcountry insurance maze for years, and right now that maze is harder to navigate than ever before in any point that I can remember. So whether you own a home, you're shopping for one, or you're getting ready to sell, this episode is going to save you money and probably some heartburn. So let's get into it. All right, so BJ, people meeting you for the very first time, we've known each other for a few years now, but anybody who's not familiar with you and this is their first time hearing you, meeting you, since you started Coastal Living Consultants in 2015, just kind of give us a little more backstory and context on who you are in the space.
Great. So I am originally from Charleston. I was born in Charleston, was raised in Mississippi, then moved to Alabama and have been back in Charleston since 2013. I was previously in the financial planning space and decided to try something new. And in 2015, I started Coastal Living Consultants, and here we are today.
So how did you choose to go from the financial side of things to insurance, which can be one of the more confusing aspects of adulthood,
Right.
is the insurance topic in general. So how did you decide that, hey, I'm gonna I'm gonna start this company in insurance?
Well, that's a good question. I had an insurance license as a financial planner, but it was for life and health. And I decided I was looking for something a little less stressful to do, which I thought would be the property and casualty. Here lately, I'm having to second guess my thinking on less stressful, and also I've always enjoyed messing with numbers. So this enabled me to continue that and in not as stressful an environment.
That that sounds confusing how to make that decision to go from one to another, but you find the commonality in the number aspect to it. So I totally get that. So with Coastal Living Consultants, what is the broad array of what you guys do?
We do all your homeowners, your flood, auto, builder's risk, commercial, any insurance you really need outside of health insurance. We can find a space for you.
Perfect. So you can pretty much help clients bundle, or if they own a home, but they might be with a company that rhymes with Schmeiko on their auto policy, you're able to help them, through the umbrella that you guys have with any of these different policies.
Absolutely.
So most people, BJ, they really only speak with their insurance broker or even think about their insurance broker or agent maybe once a year, right?
At renewal.
And at renewal. So with that, what makes what makes Coastal Living Consultants different than somebody who just dials up the 1-800, I'm your insurance guy?
I would say the biggest thing is our customer service. We answer the phone, we answer our emails, same day. You'll always get a response from us, uh, and we try to be proactive in shopping your rates around because we're not married to any one insurance company. We are Our loyalty falls with our clients more so than with the insurance companies.
How does that compare when you say that? How does that compare to a Nationwide, Allstate, Liberty Mutual. I mean, any of these companies that have Super Bowl commercials or
Right.
even commercials during, 5 o'clock news or anything like that. How do you guys compare?
Well, they're what they call a captive carrier, so they have one product, um, or what they offer under their umbrella. Where we have a multitude of insurance companies that we can shop with, so we're not stuck with one insurance company um, for whatever rate they're producing for us.
So you really are a consultant more so than
Correct.
just the agent,
Correct.
right? I think of the agent as, hey, here's this box that we're going to fit you and your family and your policy into, and this is your option.
Right. We have multiple boxes for people to look at.
Okay, just give an example of what that process looks like. When should somebody even consider having that conversation with you?
Well, if it's a new home buyer that you guys would be dealing with, as soon as they go under contract is a good time to have that conversation. If it's someone that's an existing homeowner, anytime they want a second opinion on their home to make sure they're not underinsured or make sure they're not getting overpriced with their premium.
All right, BJ, let's set the table just a little bit here for the listeners or the viewers that we have. The the insurance world has changed so much, even in the last year.
Changes every year, unfortunately,
It's crazy, and the world's changing rapidly right now.
rapidly.
So with that, I mean, right now, let's say on average, would you agree average homeowners insurance policy is about 3,200
That's a good
annually?
number.
Okay. So if we're looking at $3,200 annually for policy, what is actually driving that? What's behind all of those? What's just behind that number? What does that even mean for a buyer or a seller, a homeowner in general? What is behind the $3,200?
Well, from what the insurance companies tell us, is that it's the vast growth we're having in the Tri County area. Their exposure is increasing substantially with the growth of the people. So they're having to raise their rates in order to cover their overhead, their back end, or the cost of insurance. Um, so, it's probably a good thought to think that the more people that continue to come into the Tri County, the more insurance rates are going to continue to increase.
Yeah, last year we accounted for 90,000 people that moved to the area. I think it's probably higher. There's
Probably.
there's a lot not being calculated in there. So when we have such a high influx of people coming to the area, insurance prices and premiums, they're going up.
Correct. As a whole.
Okay. So what you're saying is that these companies are assuming more risk,
Correct.
and as a result, they're in the business of these aren't nonprofits.
That's right.
So they're in the business of profit and they have to cover some of these margins, right?
Yeah. In the event of a catastrophic event, they've got more exposure. The more people are moving here, so they have to cover their what they call reinsurance costs. So they're insuring their risk, the clients, against a catastrophic loss through other insurance companies.
So it's still just like with real estate too, it's still the economic principle of supply and demand.
Absolutely.
And they can control that to an extent, right?
Absolutely.
So we've been seeing, hearing, and this continues to evolve and change that huge companies like State Farm, Nationwide, etc., Allstate. So these companies they're pulling out all together. What's the story? What's really happening? Because I even in local headlines, there's this I guess crazy thing happening with specific beach locations. We
Right.
have Sullivan's, Isle of Palms, Folly Beach. Folly Beach, especially, the days on market has increased significantly. And that really started, we started seeing that happen as soon as a lot of these companies were pulling out on the insurance side of things, you know? So, what's the story with companies that are just saying, no, we're not writing policies that are within this distance or proximity to the coast specifically?
From what my understanding is that they've gotten all the coastal exposure they want, so they're not writing new insurance or for new purchases, but they will do renewals to some extent. They may be non-renewing some of their policies because of the trying to lower their coastal exposure. Um, but all of our carriers are regional carriers, so they make their markets in this area. So we're not in any danger of that, at least not at this time.
So, you guys, so coastal living consultants, you guys still are able to find carriers that can help buyers
Absolutely.
or sellers even that are struggling finding a buyer on their property. You guys are able to help in that regard, right?
Absolutely.
What are some of these carriers? I mean, just a couple of examples, maybe some of the carriers that are still writing policies.
You have Sage, you have Orion 180, you have Slide, Homeowners of America.
These are huge companies too.
They're big, real big companies. They're all A to A plus rated companies.
Okay, so it's crazy that there's just such a difference in some that are willing to still accept some of the risk and exposure, but I guess that's supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Market share opens up, so opportunity presents itself to some of these other companies then too.
Yep, and I think it also has to do. We haven't had a major event around here since Hugo.
89, yeah.
Yeah, so it's making their appetite a little more palatable.
It just kind of brought me to, was it a month ago or 2 months ago when there was that spurt of earthquakes that were happening just every day? Wasn't it every day or
It was,
twice a day
it was
sometimes?
very regular.
So when that was happening, and that was kind of around North Charleston, Ladson, Somerville, that kind of where the trifecta converges right there for
Right.
these locations. What was changing in your world with, I mean, you could have been writing policies that needed to bind that week for a closing. What was happening, if anything, that you can speak to?
Nothing changed as far as not being able to bind the policies. What did change is my phone was ringing a lot because people were freaking out about earthquakes. So we were adding a lot of earthquake endorsements to policies over that period of time.
So you're adding on top of a current client,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to add to their policy if they have some, I don't want to call it a story in their head of what's happening because that was very real.
Right. But if they want to add a buzzer and whistle to a policy, we can do it.
BJ, can you explain the South Carolina Wind and Hail Underwriting Association? It's in plain English. Some folks, they don't even know what this is. So just very simple, how would you outline that?
It's a group of insurance companies or a syndicate that have come together that offer wind and hail insurance to people where they're, say, a company that does this a lot is USAA. They do not offer wind and hail for the most part in the Charleston area.
Okay.
So with the client wants to stay with USAA, but they're required to have the wind and hail coverage. So they'll go to the Wind and Hail Association and just get a separate policy just to cover them for wind and hail. And they've got their dwelling or fire policy with USAA in this situation.
So how does that impact somebody's wallet? A consumer, a buyer in today's market. How does
It's much more
what's that? Yeah, it's more expensive.
It's much more expensive.
Why is that?
To be honest, I'm not sure the exact reason why the wind and hail is so much more expensive. We don't use them. All of our policies come with wind and hail.
That's great.
So I haven't had to utilize their services. So I've just seen their policies that people have brought to me to review for them.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's maybe just so in those situations, folks aren't really provided with as many options, and then they are stuck in that box of here's what you're going to have to do because we're telling you, and we're one of the in this, a big box company, right? That I've been using forever because my parents used them too, and that's just what I think is the right thing to do.
That's correct.
So the the alternative would be shop around, just like you would try on a couple different pairs of shoes before you buy these ones, or you want to drive a couple cars just to make sure you do like this one. So people just aren't necessarily in all cases shopping to make sure that they're finding the right product or service, right?
Right.
What does the process look like from your view? Or I guess maybe I can just explain what this looks like from our end and how it rolls into you. So I know for to kind of walk listeners or the viewers through what this whole process looks like in a transaction with you. Okay, when we've got a client who's looking to purchase a property, what ends up happening on our end is we're getting them connected with a lender. If they're currently working with a lender, that's great. We still, just like we had just mentioned, it is healthy to shop for service, to shop for the right programs, things like that. So once we're working with a client and they are approved, we're getting them through properties. We find the right one that's the perfect dream home for them. Then we're getting them under contract. And as soon as we get them under contract, our closing coordinator that works directly with our team and with our clients, they're making that introduction to you, BJ. So at that point, what happens on your side between you and your team with coastal living consultants and then the communication with the client?
Well, we reach out to the client, especially if there's any information that we were not provided from the closing coordinator that we need in order to get the most accurate quote. And then from there, my team will go in and start quoting around, shopping the rates around. And then once we have determined the best rates, we actually submit all of the quotes that we get in a chart form to the client so they can see, so they can actually choose for themselves. But we always provide them with the full copy of the one with the lowest premium because most clients are shopping for the lowest premium
Right.
to save the money. But they can choose any of the companies because they're all great companies.
So you guys, as consultants, part of the company's name, which is great, you guys are actually providing the client with all of these options, but you're kind of shining the spotlight on, hey, but here's the lowest premium.
Yeah, we may say, here's the Homeowners of America. It had the lowest premium, but here are the other 9 companies that return quotes for us. Because in some cases, depending on the location or depending upon the age of the house or the age of the roof, a company may choose not to quote the house.
What are the top priorities or the top items that you guys need to know about either the client or the property that we're under contract on in order to start that process and generate some of those quotes for them?
It's pretty simple. We need of course, their name. Then we need their date of birth. We'll need their current address because what we're doing is we're using their date of birth and their current address to run an insurance score. From there, we'll need, of course, the address of the property and the age of the roof. And from that, we're able to go on and produce a very accurate quote for them.
That's perfect. Let's say a buyer just went under contract on a home in Mount Pleasant. What is the first call that they should make, and when should they make that?
The first call they should make is to my office.
I know that. I
Yeah.
know that.
But make that call and get the information that I just mentioned about their personal information so we can get the quote rolling for them. And then from there, just give us typically about an hour or two. We'll have the quote back to you.
You guys have, I mean, you've helped several clients, mine personally, but with our team, I mean, you're being very honest when you say that of like, give us about an hour, and then that email comes ripping through, and it literally does have the full breakdown. And the breakdown is huge because that is what the lender actually needs, right?
Correct.
And the lender needs the proper insurance quote, that annual premium, so that way that gets baked into their numbers. What happens if somebody doesn't have the numbers?
What happens if the lender doesn't have the numbers?
Mhm.
They'll probably get declined.
Yeah, it's probably not going to close.
Right.
So you're an important guy.
At times.
What are the top 2 to 3 things that buyers don't realize about coastal insurance, and maybe tie that into the different flood zones and changing flood zone maps and things like that?
Um, I would say the biggest question we get a lot of times is on the wind deductible. They don't understand that it's 2% of the dwelling amount and not 2% or 3% or whatever the percentage is of the claim amount. So all of a sudden, if it's a 2% wind deductible and you've got a $500,000 dwelling coverage, you've now got a $10,000 deductible.
That could be pretty steep. All of a sudden, something happens and you don't realize that that deductible you were thinking in your head it's $2,500 or whatever the case is.
That's why we spell it out in dollar amounts and not percentages. So
Yeah.
there's no hidden amount there. They understand when they see it, it's written in dollar amounts.
What are some of the other things that can impact a policy like the flood zones?
Yeah, the flood zones, we have 3 flood zones here. We have the X flood zone, which is not required by your lender to carry flood insurance, but a lot of people get it just for a peace of mind. And then you have the AE flood zone, which is kind of a moderate flood zone. And then the VE, that's going to be your most risky. That's going to be like your oceanfront properties. And the AE and the VE flood zones, those insurance policies can range from, $800 on the low end to I've seen them as high as $10,000.
Really?
Yeah, on the beachfront.
Yeah, I mean that's significant.
Yes.
How for any sellers that are hearing this, how does that impact the buyer pool for them?
Well, to be honest, I think the best action in a lot of cases nowadays, and it kind of takes business away from us, but is for the buyers to assume the seller's policy if it's assumable, because a lot of times it's cheaper than the newer policy just because of the rate revisions and the map revisions that were done in 2021. So a lot of times, what I can quote a flood policy at and what the existing policy is, the existing policy is cheaper.
And that can save it. That can save a
Save a
deal,
deal. Mhm.
truly.
And in at least the way my office runs, is we're in the business of doing what's best by the client. And if them assuming the policy is what's best, then I'm going to tell them to assume the policy.
Hmm. What happens for renewals? How does that process work with you and with the team, and how you guys approach your renewals for your clients?
Well, that's a good question. The insurance company sends out renewals um, to the client and to the mortgage company if there is a mortgage company. And then there's a reminder email that not email, a reminder mailing that goes out as well as an email that goes out to the client and to the lender.
It
Um,
goes to the lender as well.
it does. It goes to both parties. And then once they receive that, a lot of times the client calls us and asks us to shop them around. and we do. And in some cases, we're proactive with it, where we get a list of the renewals that are coming up with certain companies that provide it to us, and we can see if the rates have jumped significantly. If they have, we're proactive and we shop them around.
Great. Talk to me about the NFIP and what that is.
So the NFIP is National Flood Insurance Program. It is backed by the full faith and credit of the government. So when you see we're going through a government shutdown and parts of the government are shut down, there's a possibility that the part that runs FEMA or the NFIP is shut down and we can't write any new policies. Doesn't mean you don't have flood insurance. It just means we're not able to write new policies at the time. So the limit for NFIP policy is $250,000 of dwelling coverage and $100,000 of contents coverage. Where if that's not enough coverage that someone wants to carry, we have private markets.
What is that?
A private market is like a company like Lloyd's of London that offers flood insurance.
Okay.
And they will allow us to go up, in some cases, some carriers will allow us to go up to $5 million of coverage on a house. So, there's options out there if the NFIP doesn't make complete sense for you. But when we're looking at flood insurance, we shop both the NFIP and the private markets, and we provide those quotes to the client as well and let them choose which one they prefer to go with.
When should somebody opt for the private flood policy?
I think it's just a matter of cost, because a lot of times the NFIP is significantly higher, and in some cases the private is significantly higher. That's why we shop both of them, because there's just no rhyme or reason with these companies as to which one is going to be the most affordable.
Well, it's helpful that in the event that we are at any point with our government and there is a shutdown for whatever the case might be, that you guys are still able to help the train stay on the tracks, so to speak, so that they're not losing out on the deal, the home,
Yep.
anything. The show can still continue, right?
That's right.
That's great. BJ, if you're a seller right now, are you a seller right now?
Nope.
Okay. You'll let me know though.
I will let you know.
Well, for sellers right now that are either on the market or they're considering going to the market, what advice would you give them from the insurance side of things to best prepare?
The biggest thing that we're seeing is there when there's patching on roofs, because what happens is the insurance company will issue a policy, but when they go out and do their field inspection, if they see patching on the roofs, more than likely they're going to cancel the policy on the new buyer,
Why is that?
because they feel like they're assuming someone else's problems. They feel like a patch means there was once a problem there, like a leak or something of that nature.
Sure.
And, it's kind of like health insurance. They don't want to accept people with pre-existing conditions.
Right.
Same scenario here. So I would make sure that the insurance company that the buyer is going with, or the buyer, I should say, is well aware that there's patching on the roof, so they can do their due diligence shopping around, so they're not left having out of pocket a brand new roof.
Would you suggest the seller maybe in advance explore if their policy that they currently have, if their policy is assumable?
Homeowners policies, to the best of my knowledge, are not assumable. Yeah, flood is assumable, but the homeowners is not, because it's based upon, different criteria.
The risk of the owner themselves. Gotcha. All right. Well, BJ, let's do a little rapid fire here. Favorite restaurant in Charleston?
Oh, I would say probably Costa.
Costa. What's your favorite dish?
Anything with pasta. My last name's Guido.
That's good. One thing every homeowner should know about their wind deductible
is it is based upon most likely a percentage of the dwelling amount.
Favorite team?
New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans Saints. How about that? Why?
Because I grew up in Mississippi, about 2 hours from New Orleans.
Do you still follow them now?
I do.
Biggest insurance myth in Charleston.
That it's cheaper than where they're moving from.
Best advice you've ever given a client.
Let me know anytime something changes with your personal situation. Just a quick story. Had a client decided to rent their house out, didn't tell me. Long story short, the renters backed up a moving truck to the house, emptied the house out of all furnishings, all belongings, and sped away in the dark of the night. She found out, she went to check in on the house, saw that the house was empty, filed a claim, and was not covered because she was renting the house out. It was supposed to be her primary residence.
So you need communication. You need to know these things.
Yes. So if you decide to renovate your house, you need to let me know if it's more than just cosmetics. If you're putting in a new bathroom, a new kitchen, I need to know because your policy more than likely doesn't cover you. If the electrician does something wrong and your house burns to the ground, you're going to be stuck holding mortgage and no insurance to cover it.
Best advice that a client has ever given you.
Be honest.
That's an important one. That's very important. Biggest fish you've ever caught.
Caught about a 50-pound mahi
Where?
here.
How far?
We were out at the ledge, out past the ledge.
You're like 50, 60 miles?
Yeah.
50 pounds. I bet that was pretty fun.
Oh, it was a blast.
Was it in season?
Yeah.
Was it tasty?
Oh, it was very tasty.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on the web at www.coastallivingconsultants.com, or you can call my office at 843-410-2561.
Well, BJ, this was awesome. I really appreciate you joining me for this topic, the discussion. Even I've learned a lot here today. So
good. I've enjoyed it.
Well, good. Well, thank you. And you heard the phone number. It's 843-410-2561. Check the show notes and the details for all of the contact information for BJ and for Coastal Living Consultants. And if you heard one snippet or one piece of information that you got value out of, or you learned something new, please feel free to comment or tag a friend, even share this with somebody that you know needs to hear it, whether they're buying a home or if they're selling a home, or if they're just staying in their home, they need to hear some of the information. But this is Brett Kelley with Ask Charleston. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, BJ.
Thank you.